And I'm Ann Rosenthal. I'm the director of MAPP International Productions, and I have the great pleasure to welcome you today to many things. First, Blessing the Boats, the REMIX, which is being presented by Lower Manhattan Cultural Council's River to River Festival, and it's also been commissioned by LMCC and this theater here, Tribeca Performing Arts Center. River to River Festival is continuing through July 14th with free concerts, performances all over downtown Manhattan, so I encourage you to keep checking out their site. And I also, as my Ann Rosenthal MAPP International Productions hat, I'm really happy to welcome you to Blink Your Eyes, SEKOU SUNDIATA Revisited, a 7-month citywide retrospective celebrating the legacy of a remarkable artist, SEKOU SUNDIATA. SEKOU was a deeply compassionate person and a fiercely committed artist and activist and leader. He fully embraced his times, the city he lived in, the communities, and everywhere he touched. And he left those places forever changed. And MAPP is one of the places that he forever changed. We had the pleasure to work with SEKOU over what turned out to be the last decade of his life. It was an incredibly prolific and ambitious time where he created and toured several major theater works, including Udo, which he created also with Craig Harris, this work, Blessing the Boats, the America Project, and the 51st Dream State. Working with him, he left us, it very deeply impacted all of us who were working at MAPP, and we're really honored to continue to work with his legacy and the many artists that he influenced. As part of this, when we thought about creating this retrospective, we knew that to do it we had to bring the work to all of the places that SEKOU called home, all the way from, so we have events from the Bronx to Harlem, to the Upper West Side, to the Village, and down here to Lower Manhattan and into Brooklyn. We also knew that we could never do this by ourselves, and I'm really happy to say that we have the partnership of 2 major universities and 18 cultural organizations throughout the city who are presenting and commissioning revisiting of SEKOU's work. And we also, 9 foundations and government agencies came forward to support this incredible project. And I just want to give a brief shout out to them. The Rockefeller Foundation, the Lambin Foundation, Cerna Foundation, the Nathan Cummings Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Axe Houghton Foundation, Link, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York Council on the Humanities. I think all of that is a great testament to the impact of this one artist. And not only that, but more than 100 artists are contributing their own creative juices to revisiting and reimagining SEKOU's work in poetry, in music, and in his teaching methodology. Tonight, or this afternoon, with Blessing the Boats, the REMIX is the first of 3 theater pieces that we will be remixing as part of the retrospective. SEKOU created Blessing the Boats in 2002, and he toured as a solo work. He toured it throughout the country and abroad for 5 years until 2007, just a month before he passed. So it's very special to be able to hear these words again. And I want to thank the artists who have put aside their own creative work to focus on how to enliven these words again. And they are RHODESSA Jones, CARL HANCOCK RUX, Will Power, Mike Ladd, Rick Murray, Sage Marie Carter, Lana Botez, Mimi Lee. They're an incredible team. We have lots of events coming up through October. Next week, even on July 3rd, we have a great concert at Central Park Summer Stage with Nona Hendrix and Toshi Reagan and Sandra St. Victor. And a couple weeks later, another concert at Lincoln Center Atrium. So please come. There's a website, SEKOUSUNDIATA.org. We have brochures about the retrospective in the lobby. And we also have a really beautiful catalog that includes many rarely seen photographs of Sekou, many of his poems, which were hardly ever published, journal entries, essays by other artists, and an amazing kind of chronicle of his life. So I encourage you to check it out. It's also available in the lobby after the show. And finally, I'm sorry about this air conditioning situation, but we do have a talk back after this performance with the performers and also with kidney donors and kidney recipients. And I encourage you to stay. We'll be turning back the air conditioning. We'll be turning on the air conditioning again, and it'll happen immediately after the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Captain's Log, star date August 22nd, 1999. It's my first birthday after the transplant, so it's a double birthday. I used to be a Leo, but now I'm whatever sign has the best forecast in the daily horoscope. I have gone where few men have gone before, and I know for sure that the stars are not where they used to be. I didn't go boldly, but I went, and now I'm back. In the cockpit of the mothership, with my books, my journal, and the scratch and whisper of my #2 lead pencils. Plus, whatever I can pull out of the thin air of memory. It has taken 8 months for the doctor to lower the dose of my medications, and for the tremors in my hand to settle down, so that I could finally get back to writing again. I have been feeling a story building up along the road to recovery, a road that is uncharted and unpaved, which means that I can open my journal, point to a spot on the page, and begin anywhere.
One holds a knife as one holds the bow of a cello or a tulip by the stem. The knife is not for pressing, it is for drawing across the field of skin, followed by a fine wake of red. A still settles over my heart and is carried to my hand. It is the quietude of resolve laid over fear. And it is this resolve that lowers us, my knife, and me, deeper and deeper into the person beneath. An entry into the body that is nothing like a caress. Still, it is among the gentlest of acts. Then stroke, and stroke again. And we are joined by other instruments, hemostats and forceps, until the wound blooms with strange flowers. There is sound, the tight click of clamps fixing teeth over severed blood vessels, the snuffle and gargle of the suction machine clearing out the field of blood for the next stroke, the litany of monosyllables with which one prays one's way down and in. Clamp, sponge, suture, tie, cut. And there's color. The green cloth, the white sponge, the red and yellow of the body. Beneath the fat lies the fascia, the tough fibrous sheet encasing the muscle. It must be sliced, and the red beef of muscle separated. Deeper still, the peritoneum, pink and gleaming and membranous, bulging into the wound. It is grasped with forceps and opened. For the first time, we are able to see into the cavity of the abdomen. Such a primitive place. One expects to find drawings of buffalo on the walls.
I got your red beef and buffalo drawing. This was a passage I had read years ago in an essay by Richard Seltzer, a surgeon who was as much an artist as he was a doctor, and it never left my mind. The lyrical drama of the language would come to me from time to time and whisper in my ear like a good poem. But lying there on that operating table, it came back to me and said, boom! There is nothing lyrical about the operating room. It is as cold as the term surgical procedure. By the time they roll me in, the donor kidney has already been removed and is probably sitting in an ice cooler. I think they've given me a sedative, so I'm calm. I'm in a good mood. Then they give me the heavy drugs and tell me to count. There is a golden moment between counting and going under when all is right with the world. They're going to take about 4 hours to cut me open and install a new organ. And that's cool. There's going to be a Foley catheter coming out of my penis to collect urine. And even that's cool.
Somewhere deep and under anesthesia, the valves of a human heart open and close, and the black scat syllables of sacred science come pouring onto a clean page, turning over in my mind. The blues bat their eyes and rustle their wings. A double reed vibrates in a pure light. That means all things are possible. A bow draws out a round tone across the waist of a bass. It can be the devil's note the way it cuts through the wood and wind, bending the sound right side up, harmonizing the underworld. Whoever said the music goes into the air and then it's gone was wrong. It goes below the flesh and above the grave, where I am as flat as a mesa, open as the great gorge beneath the Taos sky. I try to remember the notes by humming, but humming burns the music out of memory.
I asked the nurses, "Do you hear that music?" Not one nurse heard it. I asked the doctor, "What kind of music is that?" He said, "White music." The organ started working right away, before I was even wheeled out of the operating room. I may have been drugged up and hearing things, but people, I was in business.
The doctors and nurses have a way of getting you up and out of bed before you were even ready to get up and out of bed. They had me up and walking as soon as I could stay awake for 30 minutes at a time. IV pole, catheter, and all. Now, I was handling my business the first week, but then I got so weak and tired moving from the bed to the chair, I couldn't just make my move. I had to think it through first and make a plan. I would look at the empty chair. Empty chair would look back at me. I would visualize myself making the journey across the vast 12 inches of floor, but I couldn't see myself making my way back to the bed. After a while, I lost my will and just stayed in bed. Doctors reordered more surgery, reopened the same wound, found internal bleeding, almost 2 liters of blood swimming around inside, and I think my liver had shut down. I heard that beautiful soul music again. I asked Kazi, "Well, what does this mean?" She said, "It means that there was a good band playing at death's door when you got there, boo.
If you get sick, you suddenly become a magnet for all the trippy people from the original tribe of 1,000 vibes.
Did you say kidney disease, my brother? What's your sign?
Man, you just take the A train out to far West Africa in Brooklyn and see get 12 colonics for half price from Sister Act Nation. Tell her I sent you.
Then they hit you with that dogmatic one-size-fits-all philosophy.
Brother Sekou, I know you learned many cosmic lessons from your journey.
Through the divine order of the cosmos.
Man, I didn't learn a damn thing. But I did find some shit out. There's a difference. Learning sounds lofty and elevated, but when you find some shit out, it means you have been struck by awe and filled with wonder as to the way things really are. As in, oh shit! Wait, 3 years before getting out of the hospital, it was revealed to me that the world is both hard and soft, liquid and solid. Thinking that my constant battling of weakness and fatigue was due to being out of shape, one day I decided to ride my bike, get some exercise.
Time was, I could ride my bike from Harlem to the South Ferry, or to Brooklyn and back, or I'd ride up to the Bronx, cop a half ounce of wisdom, then back down to Central Park and run full court basketball all afternoon. Time was, I got on my bike and rode about half a mile when I just lost power in my legs. I couldn't pedal another block. It was all I could do to walk back home.
As I get on the elevator doors close, and the walls begin to melt. The lights are dimming ever so slightly. The elevator's dissolving and swaying into air. My head is buzzing like a cheap appliance. At first, I'm charmed by the melting walls and the dimming lights and this curious fade into, oh shit!
When I regain consciousness, I'm on the floor with the bicycle on top of me. The elevator is not moving and the door is closed. I feel like my head's been hit with a steel beam. I get to my feet, but I'm so dizzy I can barely stand up. I press door open and step out on my floor. I can't say for sure, but I think I get as far as pressing the button before I black out. Then the elevator goes up. The door opens, and since nobody calls for the elevator, the door closes again and just stays on the 7th floor. And I don't know how long I'm down either. I mean, I could be lying there for 2 minutes or 20 minutes. So this time, enter my alter ego.
Mr. Sundiata, there's a big difference between 2 minutes and 20 minutes, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah? What's up with this Mr. Sundiata all of a sudden? You belong to me. I'm the A side, you the B side.
That may all be well and good, but you did say that you blacked out on the elevator. If I had blacked out on the elevator, I would have no idea what happened. How is it that you know exactly what happened?
I'm saying, it's just speculation, just an educated guess. What do you think happened?
Oh, whatever I think really doesn't matter. All that matters now are the facts.
Facts? What facts? I already said, I was on the floor, knocked out.
We do call ourselves a poet, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, me and many other people.
And poetry, how do we define that? Skinny little lie, wouldn't you agree?
Man, I wish all this never even happened to me, so why would I lie about it?
Seems to me there's some money to be had in a heart-wrenching story like this. Are we being paid for this narrative?
Yeah, we ain't being paid much. Non-profit, walking around type money.
Money might be funny to you, but money ain't funny to me. By the way, who was it that blacked out on the elevator? SEKOU SUNDIATA or Rock Feaster?
Come on. You know damn well that Feaster is my plantation name.
It's also the name we gave the hospital for the insurance money. Isn't that right?
Like you don't know. There's my plantation name and then there's my free name.
Well, tell the court, if you please, who was it that got the
What
transplant?
court is you talking about? This ain't real.
When you talk back and forth with yourself, that's not real. But when you argue with me, that's drama. And by definition, all drama is real. So please, just tell us what happened next.
I went to the emergency room. And the doctor said I had a syncope episode.
Did you say a sympathy episode? Speak up, please. Tell us what that is.
A syncope episode.
No, don't tell me you fainted.
Nah, I don't tell people I fainted. I tell them you and me, we blacked out.
What's with this you and me all of a sudden? Let the record show that I'm the one who blacked out, but you probably had a little 2-minute fainting spell, but you kicked up to 20 minutes for the sake of alliteration, as in 2 minutes or 20 minutes. Isn't that right, Mr. Feaster? Oh, Mr. Sundiata. Ooh.
June 1997. I've never been good at keeping a journal, but this time will be different because this time something's following me. Something blue to the bone that insinuates its way into the moment-to-moment life of my body and mind. I've had severe dizziness and vasospasms in my brain for a whole year, which means that I've returned to some primitive consciousness in which time is continuous and everything happens in the present tense. Everybody else walks around like reality is their friend, like they can walk upright all day without falling down a rabbit hole. I used to think like that, up until the days of my revelation. Back in the days of revolutionary study groups, we wanted to shake up the world. Now I just wanted the world to stop shaking. Diagnosis: uncontrolled hypertension, high blood pressure, labile blood pressure, meaning it goes up and down all the time. And since I now have heart flutters beating like rock and roll in my chest, I imagine labile blood pressure as red and white blood cells drag racing through my arteries and veins. The doctor gave me a cardiac monitor to put on my chest to record the races when they start. Then I'm supposed to call this 800 number and play the recording into the telephone. Somebody on the other end looks at the results and tells me if I'm having a heart attack.
Hello, thank you for calling Heartthrob. No, I do not see red and white blood cells drag racing to your heart. No, sir, I've never had red and white blood cells drag racing through my heart. No, I am not a doctor. But according to the results, you're not having a heart attack at the moment. But if it happens again, please call back. Hello, thank you for calling Heartthrob. The races have started again. The reading is perfectly normal now. No, I do not see any dramatic peaks and valleys in the printout. No, sir. I cannot come to your house and see for myself. No, sir, I'm not a doctor. But according to the results, you're not having a heart attack at the moment. But if it happens again, sir, please call back.
Heart flutters, like I was falling in love, and vasospasms, these quick little seizures that happen in your head, only you can't tell if it's in your mind and your brain, except that it feels like your gray matter is sneezing. So I get my brain scanned. When the doctor points out the pictures, we see these tiny little holes, and he says, well, it's normal for some people to have holes in their head, but nothing neurological is indicated. The thought was, if the high blood pressure could be brought under control, the symptoms would go away. But first, I had to go through a series of drugs called alpha blockers, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, ACE inhibitors. They sounded like some weird-ass football team in the National High Blood Pressure League. They each did different things, but they all had the same goal, to get your blood to just chill, be cool. I imagined a semi-knowledgeable salesman as an Uptown smoothie for high blood pressure medication.
Put your hands together like this, everybody. Come on, everybody, come on. Come on, in the back too. Let's get it started like this. Check it out, yo. First you have what you call your alpha blockers, and they control what you call your nerve impulses that allow the blood to flow without encountering much pressure. You dig? Beta blockers, on the other hand, make the heart beat at a slower rate. In return, the heart doesn't have to work this hard, so there's less pressure all the way around, baby. Calcium channel blockers, that's my shit. They also help the cardiovascular to chill by controlling the amount of calcium up inside the heart muscles. You feel me? ACE inhibitors, what? This type of medication blocks the production in a hormone in the kidney that causes blood vessels to contract in the first place. Yo, no matter how you look at it, alpha, beta, calcium blockers, ACE inhibitors, you will be well chilled and fully able to serve your day pressure-free. Think about it, yo!
Do you know how many different types of hypertension medication there are? Nobody does. And do you know how they know which type of medication will work? Trial and error. That's why they call it
Medical practice.
A month went by, no change. 2 months, no change. 6 months, and I was no better than the day I stepped off the elevator. I mean, I thought I'd be on stage with my band one day, doing my sound check from the Canterbury Tales. One that appears is so sweet, the drought of match is pierced the root, and be the vine and such liquor, of which virtue engender is the fear, and boom! My labor would meet my flutter, my vassals would sputter up, and all the poetry I ever knew would spew out of one of those holes in my brain like steam from a busted gasket, and I would just drop dead. And it would be like those first moments when I was coming to on the floor of the elevator, when I thought I had just died. When I thought, so
this is how it happens. You die, and you don't even remember it. You remember something about your life right up to the moment you die. Then you step through a trap door made of time and space, and that's it. You don't remember a damn thing about dying itself.
Just like I couldn't remember the 2 minutes or 20 minutes in question.
August 1997. The thought of dropping dead is a joke I tell myself to keep my mind off of how I'm living. I go about my business acting like everybody else, like my day is predictable and under control. No one can tell I'm talking to them from behind a mask. They don't understand. I can see their flesh and bone turn to water. I can see the real person in front of me, as well as the iterations of their bodies, wiggle, evaporate, recompose into hard matter. I say,
What's happening?
They say.
Nothing much.
So I play the same game when people ask me,
What's happening?
I nut up and Say,
Nothing much.
but I'm scared. That I'll be dizzy and confused forever with spasms in my brain going on every day like a power surge in reverse. The electricity in my body dropping like the slow blink of an eye, booting up again to the terrible speed of the spinning liquefied reality. I always imagined I would live a long life. But I don't want to live it like this. After 9 months, I've lost faith in my doctors. When I blacked out, my kidneys were operating at 50%. By now, they're operating at 35%. Seems like I have to urinate every 15 minutes. I keep yawning all the time. I always have this half-closed, dreamy look in my eyes. Friends and strangers always asking me whether or not I'm sleepy or tired. Nothing is working.
It never goes away.
There is no distracting me from myself. Oh, come on. Come on. That's right. I'm all right.
5, 6, 7, come on.
Oh, I got it now, man. Feels good. I've got a brand new band, man.
It's the Labor Day weekend.
That's right.
Yeah. Me and Kazi are on vacation in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We're only here for a few days, and the governor announces a hurricane evacuation. We drive north. The hurricane follows us up the highway. Just behind us, thousands of homes are losing power, dropping most of the coast in the darkness. The steeple is ripped off the First Baptist Church, and driving winds are reaching 120 miles per hour. What's going on outside my head matches what's going on inside. We check into a hotel in Virginia Beach, overlooking the Atlantic. The city is caught up in the strong winds and constant rain. I can see the ocean from our hotel room, the water surging and pushing the angry tides. There are calm moments when dolphins swim by. And I imagine myself in the room alone, stretched out on the bed, mainlining the best heroin I could find. I'm smiling and going in and out of that sweet nod that dope fiends know so well when the dope is good. And you know you can just drift right off into the next life. The thing about going into a heroin nod is that you don't know what's going on around you, but then again you do. People think dope fiends are in an unconscious, sleep-like state, and that's true. Think of all the stories of somebody smoking a cigarette, nodding off, and burning down the house. But remember how many dope fiends you've watched. Bent over in a nod. Getting closer and closer to the ground. And suddenly coming out of it, just before they fell. I probably chose suicide by overdose because I knew more about drugs, heroin, than I knew about guns. And so that I would be numb to the terror of my condition. So that I could come out of it at the last moment, rescued by some divine bungee cord. The elevator door would open, and I would go to my apartment of solid walls and stable floors.
The doctor had me on Vasotec, a hypertension medication which black people call my pressure pill, which is different from my water pill or my sugar pill. And like all those before it, it wasn't working.
Then he added this new drug called minoxidil. When it was in development, they found out it had an interesting side effect. It could make hair grow. So about a month later, I'm standing in front of the mirror combing my hair, when suddenly my forehead looks smaller than it used to be. Oh, shit! What's the matter now? Man, how can my forehead shrink? My eyebrows are thick and lush. I got nose hairs like I ain't seen since I burnt them out sniffing drugs back in the 60s. I got hair on my arms and I need a shave. I spent most of my adult life not shaving. I only started shaving for real in the last 10 years. When I examine my forehead closer, I see that the new growth has brought my hairline forward, but I can still see the old hairline. Technically speaking, what I'm calling the old hairline was a newly receded hairline that receded some time ago, but I just hadn't noticed it. I mean, come on. It didn't occur to me that I could have more face. But this minoxidil hair was where my old hair used to be. I got old hair, but the hair that snuck up when I wasn't looking. So this minoxidil and Vasotex, it was the winning combination at last. I mean, my blood pressure was normal and stayed there for the first time in I don't know how many years. New hair, new blood pressure, too late. Now, hypertension had done its damage. My kidneys were at 15%. And the doctor said it was time to choose what form of dialysis I wanted to go on because I would have to begin in a month. Choose? How could I choose? The medical establishment had trained me to be a faithful, obedient patient, to sit in the waiting room for hours without an explanation. That's why they call it patient in the first place. The medical establishment says that they have a secret knowledge of the complex ways of the body, even if it is your own body, and they alone know how to intone the magic language of Latin and outer space in which those secrets are encoded. I was trained to come with my hurt in hand and turn it over to them. So if I said my brain is blinking on and off, they'd say,
vasospasms.
and if I said I blacked out, they'd say,
Syncope episode.
So if I say, well, do these symptoms mean I'm dying? They'd say, well, according to the latest research,
Anything could be anything.
then they really messed me up. Tell me to rate my pain on a scale of 1 to 10. And they don't get it. I mean, if I got a pain that I could rate on a scale of, say, 1 to 10, I'll stay my ass home and take aspirin.
Soon after the doctor told me I had to make a choice, his nurse Ming called me at home. This is the same nurse who'd been drawing my blood for the past year. When I first met her, she had a hard time finding a vein because my veins are small and tend to hide. I told her they were hiding because they didn't want to get stabbed. She said my veins were small because I don't do any work. In Jamaica, you know, we work hard. Look at my veins, big. What kind of work do you do? I told about the poetry. And the music, and the touring. No wonder, she said. We became friends right then and there. Robert, this is me, Ming. The doctor told me to choose hemodialysis. It's the wrong choice. If you choose hemo, you have to come in for treatment 3 times a week, every week. I know you. All that traveling and everything, you need peritoneal dialysis because you're going to do it by yourself on your own schedule. Robert, you better listen to me or you'll make a big mistake. I want to show you something the next time you come in. And Robert, don't tell the doctor I called. I'm not supposed to tell you this. I could be in trouble with my job. On my next appointment, Ming takes me to meet the nurses who run the peritoneal dialysis unit. But instead of taking me through the main doors, we walk through the side doors so she can show me the big mistake, the hemodialysis unit. Some of the patients walking on their own. Others walk with those canes. Some come with those cages. The medical transport pulls up to wheel in the disabled. I'm up to my imagination in the quirky world of monitor lights and electronic bug music, blinking crickets and stuttering cicadas. LED lines and graphic symbols grab my attention like a mindless video game. Dialysis stations line the walls and people sit at them in chairs that resemble lazy boys named Fresenius and Baxter. The hooked to machines. It looked like square chest robots in the 1950s, drawing out the blood, washing it, returning it to the body from whence it came, the color as rich as the blood wine of the Lamb.
There are swollen hands and legs, bandages, twisted signs of stroke, and heroine's tragic comic mask, the upside-down smile. Most patients here are black and Latino. Some read, some doze. I overhear some of the staff and patients joking, talking casually as if there's nothing more at stake than a routine doctor's appointment. A woman watches the Panasonic portable she has brought along for company. The ultraviolet rays dance on the dry skin of her face as she turns to look at the blood pressure monitor with the same dispassionate gaze she used to watch the television. None of this applies to her, it seems. Her disease is one thing, she is something else. The patient looks up and catches me staring at him. He measures me up and down. Maybe it's just a curious look, but I read it as an indictment of me for touring through his troubles. He nods, what's happening? I nod back, nothing much. Week after week, rain or shine, they come to hemo and send their blood out to the machines to be cleaned so that the buildup of phosphorus and aluminum and sodium won't poison them, so that potassium would not back up in their blood and stop their hearts. These were the first boats I met to be blessed.
In the great midst, when the hero's about to step off into the transforming adventure, he comes to the edge. And things at the edge take on dramatic, exaggerated forms in order to engage the imagination of the would-be hero. This is my age, the switching point where things can become their opposite. Disease into health, life into death, despair into hope. It's called end-stage renal disease.
When we get to the other dialysis unit, Ming ends our tour and leaves me with the nurses who explain the benefits of peritoneal dialysis. I called the doctor and told him that I wanted peritoneal dialysis because I didn't want to make a big mistake. Hemodialysis looked like imprisonment, and I wanted whatever would be the closest thing to freedom, even if it was only a reasonable facsimile.
Here I am, a middle-aged brother who's got the shakes and can't stay awake. Who's got to hold on to the wall because his head is spinning like a gyroscope. A poet who can't write poems because there's too much distance between his mind and his body. And anyway, the ideas in his head are going so slow because his mind is so slow, and they just bounce around and reverberate like a sound effect. Where is my witty? Where is my sovereignty? And most of all, where the hell is my cool? I was not the self I thought myself to be. I mean, how you just wake up one day and not be who you think you are? I'll tell you how. The body is a low-down, dirty sneak. And it remembers every psychological and physical insult it has ever suffered. And every insult leaves a scar. And that scar is a map to the insult, which just lays in the cut like a memorial. And should you delete it from your memory, that is to say, should you forget it, your body will retrieve that data and bring that shit right back up. Right when you're trying to go to sleep. Or right when someone tells you how cute you are. Or right when you tell yourself how cool you are. Here comes the big payback. Your body will break you down. It will make you beg. It will change your priorities.
I was surprised to find out the size of the kidneys. The kidney's job is to regulate a delicate balance of chemicals, minerals, and water in the body. They clean the blood and regulate blood pressure. Big job. Big organs. Simple as that. But most kidneys are the size of a small fist, and they're located in the back off to the side. I had taken it for granted the most important part of the body was regulated in front of the pelvis. This is what I mean about the body being a big sneak. It'll let you believe things like that till it's ready to tell you the truth. It ain't the heart, the lungs, or the brain. The biggest, most important part of the body is the part that hurts. I'll tell you who else is a low-down, dirty sneak.
Let them know.
A narrative. A narrative is a $20 word for story. And once you start writing your own story, it takes on a life of its own. Your own body and your own story will get together without you, and then, in the interest of full disclosure, they will rat your ass out. Your story will catch you in a lie, but your body will make you fess up. Like with me. My sin was a sin of omission. It's not what I said, but what I didn't say about what started my kidney failure.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sekou, and I have a chronic narrative with a behavior problem. It keeps bringing up certain things: marijuana,
Morphine.
heroin. And I'm here tonight, like you, trying to connect the dots. Just to tell you a little bit more about myself. Well, I can tell you
Where?
When
and how the term in the 60s ended. It was December 15th, 1969, at 4:30 in the afternoon, in a men's room on the campus of City College, where I was shooting up heroin for the last time. And when I went into the hospital for detox that day, I found out that my kidneys were losing function, although it was only a slight loss at the time. I had shot dope for the last time, but the drugs had already insulted my body for good.
I think they weakened my kidneys and brought about the long-term high blood pressure that caused them to scar. The drugs also affected my mind for good. I don't have to tell you what drugs can do to the mind, but I
have a terminal case of dope fiend thinking. I mean, it's a way of approaching life that never goes away. Keep a little dose of larceny in the heart. For me, it's an addiction to the thrill. And it don't have to be drugs. It's just staying a little bit beyond the rules and regulations. Like my father used to say.
Boy, you think you some kind of privileged character.
Man, I'm hooked on a rush. It don't have to be drugs. It could be as simple as running a red light. I mean, I will go out of my way without even thinking about it for that little rush.
If you've seen one red light, you've seen them all. Nothing will ever bring me the same intense good feelings as dope, but nothing will ever bring me such intense hell either. Even if it takes 30 years to heat up. Thank you for listening.
I went on dialysis in 1997, but I traced these troubles back to 1993. I was performing a theater piece called The Circle Unbroken is a Hard Bottom. I wrote the text. Craig Harris wrote the music. The story was held together by a series of letters exchanged between three artists who reminisce about their friendship during the days of the revolution in black arts. We got a good review in the New York Times, which I happen to know by heart.
What happens when one has been free too long without freedom? The play suggests no answer, but the question is a sharp summation of this funny, troubling, eloquent hour of poetry and music. In one dramatic scene, Mr. Sundiata lets the audience hear all at once the range of his vocabulary and voice. In 8 minutes, pours out a torrent of grief, humor, and shrewd insight that leaves one simply astonished. The scene is an emblem of the whole work. A smart, snappy piece of theater that is also a subtle, challenging conversation between the actors and the audience.
Bookings started coming in. Suddenly we were working all the time. I mean, rehearsing and traveling, setting up, breaking down, moving on. I was tired and listless, like a mild flu is trapped in my system.
A Night in New Haven. Halfway through the show is Craig's trombone solo. Tonight, he plays the whole horn, taking it apart as he plays all the way down to the mouthpiece, where it's about squeaks and squawks and breath and spit and funk. I'm backstage changing my costume. There are nights when Craig's solo is timed perfectly to my costume change. This is not one of those nights. And there is no telling when the solo's gonna end. Naturally, we've argued about this before. He said, it ain't me, it's the ghost. I said, man, this ain't the avant-garde. He said, yeah, but the ghosts don't know that. I said, I'm all dressed up with nowhere to go because of that long-ass solo. He said, okay. All right, then. But you the one that gotta say no to the ghost. There was a time I couldn't wait for Craig to finish. I'd be revved up, shadow boxing with my character. And the more psyched I was, the longer Craig played. But now he didn't get an argument from me. By now I'd stopped working out with my character, whose name was Space, who was a Black Power veteran who spoke in stream of consciousness, free association rant, always trying to get his story straight. Because he only remembered stuff in fragments. Like there was a remote control in the back of his head that kept changing channels. It was all I could do to change clothes and stare at the music and wait for my chi or chakras or something to kick in. So I was laying out rhythm. Something that would stick in the mind even after I moved away and floated the monologue above it. Audience come along for the ride, anticipating what the hell is this fool gonna do next? Something was